My name's Julie and I'm one of the Pukunui team here. As moderator, again, it's my privilege to introduce Anthony Borrow as our presenter of this session. Anthony is well known to many of you as one of the, I guess, as the maintainer of the Contrib code or the Contrib database. This session is obviously talking about some of the most popular plugins, and of course most of you are hopefully aware of plugins, but rather than stealing thunder, I'm sure that Anthony will explain that himself. So without further ado, I shall pass over. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, Julian. Yes, Moodle plugins are sections of code that get added into Moodle that expand its functionality. And this session is going to look at the plugins that are the most popular, that have been downloaded the most, and kind of discuss those. It's also, I think, a good overview of kind of the ways that Moodle can be expanded. Just a brief introduction about who I am. I'm a Catholic priest, currently serving as the associate pastor at a parish in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Immaculate Conception. But I have teaching experience, and so I taught a few years in Dallas and a couple of years in Houston at our Cristo Rey School, which is an interesting model here in the U.S. that we've been, that the Jesuits have been playing with, where we get involved with corporate sponsors. So 4 students will share a full-time job and 1 day a week go to work, and the money from that work goes directly to the school to reduce the cost of the tuition. And so it aims to be a way that students of lower income families can get a good private education. I have a master's degree in counseling and had the privilege of working with teen gangs when I was in Honduras, and love playing racquetball and anything related to Star Trek. I mentioned this just to point out that you don't necessarily have to be, a hardcore programmer or developer to be interested in plugins. I hope some folks here, and maybe you could just say a little bit about, your own background with Moodle, whether you're the site admin or a teacher, whatever your role is in Moodle, and maybe just a little bit about your interest in plugins, just to give me an idea here. The community is very diverse. We have very diverse interests, and so I think that that's always a benefit to the community. I joined Moodle back in 2005 when I was working in a high school in Dallas, and I decided to, poke around on using Moodle and in the forums there, and I had a few questions. And I think that's one of the challenges of Moodle, is because it is such a diverse program. There's so many aspects to it that when I've offered some training at schools, that the faculty, the teachers can oftentimes very quickly be overwhelmed by the number of options. So I'd say, today during the presentation, think about, don't try to remember everything, because there's going to be just a lot of information kind of thrown at you. But really kind of look for, what's something that I could see myself using. So anyway, when I was getting involved with the Using Moodle forums, I tried to answer what I thought were the simple questions, and then I thought that if I did that, then the people who were more knowledgeable than myself would be able to answer the more complex questions and have time for that, and that the developers would have time to develop. And so I find it really amazing, the forums, how dynamic they are, how quickly people respond, and how generous they are with their time. So I was identified early on as particularly, and there was sorry about that. There was a patch that I added to my Moodle site for the gradebook to add some enhanced functionality, and a lot of those that functionality I think I've incorporated into core. But the person that wrote the patch ended up kind of moving on to a different project, and so around the time that I had suggested that they update the patch to include the changes that had been made in core, and the next thing I know, as I was reading on the forums, that people thought that I was maintaining the patch. And so since no one was there, I kind of stepped in and started doing that. Then I decided to develop a birthday block, which was just a simple, very similar to the online users block, except that it would look into the user profile and see whose birthday it was that day and display it. And the great thing about writing that block for me was that within a few days, I had people working on a Japanese translation, a Portuguese translation, and so people were contributing back to it and saying, yes, we want to use this, and here's some information that will make it more useful to others. And then people would give suggestions, and so very quickly folks told me that they wanted to see that it was able to be used in different countries with different date formats, rather than month, day, year, which is what I was using. And so people will use plugins that you write and then challenge you to improve them and make them better. The other thing that came out was someone said, well, it's great to see the current day, but we'd like to see, whose birthday's coming up in the next couple of days, and so then I added that functionality as well. But I find it just a great way to participate with folks and allow them to give you feedback about how they use the code that you write. And sometimes you can steal other projects too, like the meeting room scheduling tool was a PHP project, and I added that in as a block. And so I think just kind of learning to play with the code and having fun with that, but kind of looking at what are the needs of my institution. We had a computer lab, or several labs, that teachers needed to be able to schedule and reserve, and so I added that functionality for them. Dave O. Smith, that's the other nice thing about, you write something, but that doesn't mean that, you're necessarily committed to it for the rest of your life, because the MRBS block, as I took on more responsibilities with Moodle Plugins and reviewing them, then that meant I had less time for maintaining the MRBS block, or really even the birthday block. And Dave O. Smith stepped up and said, well, I'd be willing to work on that and maintain that for you. And so I've been very grateful to him for that. And so it really, as a community, we're so much stronger than individuals. And so I say allow necessity and questions and needs of your own institutions to, kind of motivate you to do things. And then, yes, with the audio, I think what happened was I accidentally got muted for a second, and so now I'm back. So hopefully everyone can hear me fine. But it's just a great way to participate with others and to allow them to collaborate with you. I did add a couple of things to core, most notably forum aggregation types. And so I found when I was in the classroom, I wanted to use the forums in a way that was a little bit different. The initial way that it was coded was just to take the average of ratings, but I wanted to be able to do max, min, sum kind of things, and so I added in that functionality, working with what was there, and that was incorporated into core. So, I think if folks kind of present their ideas, and I think that's one of the things that kind of makes plugins exciting, is that you can say, well, here's what I did, here's what I needed at my institution, and then allow others to, learn from your experience and improve upon it. Now my role is the Plugins Facilitator, and what I try to do with that is make sure that all of the plugins follow a good Moodle coding guidelines that, in terms of file names and function names, that they're in plain English and easily read. Because one of the things that I was impressed with early on in the Moodle community was that the code was very easy to read. And initially, I found myself really focused on the code. And as I got into the community more and more, I find the community to be more impressive than the code. But I try to review the plugins to make sure that there are no obvious security issues. So to make sure that they're, sanitizing the data using the Moodle functions that are designed to do that, especially with how those parameters are received. And so I try to make sure that everything is kind of organized properly, that it will install. So I actually take each plugin and I install it on a test server and make sure that I don't start getting a bunch of errors. Just kind of give it a quick review and make sure that it does kind of what it says that it does. And so that gives me a chance then to begin a conversation with developers, with the person that submitted the code, and to make suggestions about how they might improve it so that it's a little bit more Moodle-like, or if everything's fine, just to thank them for their work. And then the community knows that, at least if they install it on their server, they're not hopefully going to get a bunch of errors. That's my role in kind of reviewing Moodle plugins as they're submitted. So the goals today that I have are to help you to understand the difference between a Moodle plugin and a Moodle add-on. I'll go ahead and do that now because I think it's really simple. All add-ons are plugins. So a plugin is anything that you can drop into Moodle to expand its functionality. An add-on is simply a plugin that is not part of Moodle core, that's not maintained by Moodle HQ. To identify the various types of Moodle plugins, and we'll spend most of the time today kind of going through those and looking at what are the most popular examples of plugins that have been shared with the community for each of the plugin types. And then I'll go through how to do an installation, how to install those plugins onto your site, and then assess some of the most popular Moodle plugins and tell you some of the things maybe to look for as you go through and look at the Moodle plugins listing on Moodle.org. It's Moodle.org/plugins, and you can kind of go through and play with and look at and install pretty easily now with Moodle 2.5 those plugins and test them out. Again, if folks have any questions, please feel free to post those into the chat at any time. So the M in Moodle stands for modular, and Moodle is designed, excuse me, to be expandable. That you can just kind of plug in some code, and you don't have to worry too much about it breaking or needing other pieces of code. And so they're really meant to be function as independent units so that you can enable and disable them pretty easily. And so Moodle plugins refers to all functionality that makes up Moodle, but Moodle add-ons are those non-core plugins, as we've said. So pretty much what you find in Moodle plugins are really add-ons. And we're just simply making that distinction so that folks have an idea of what's in core and supported by Moodle HQ, and the things that were contributed by others in the community. Just a quick word about patches. At this point, the general sentiment is, patch is bad because, they modify core files. Every once in a while, I'll get a plugin that, says, well, you have to modify, this one particular file in order for this plugin to fully work. We really try to find ways around that so that they don't require core modifications. Core tries to be flexible enough to be able to handle almost anything that you can throw at it. So, we really kind of discourage patches. Occasionally, I will allow in a plugin that has an optional patch, but generally speaking, patches are relegated to a section of Moodle plugins called Other, the Other category, and that is where you can find those. But like I said, those really are pretty much discouraged at this point in Moodle. Really rather work around that so that you don't have to patch your site. It just makes it easier, to upgrade the site and things like that. When you have patches, it kind of complicates the process a bit. Okay. Good, Gary. Could you say a little bit more about, what was it that, what was the point of confusion? I'd be interested in hearing that. Looking at the various plugin types, prior to Moodle 2.3, there was just a general assignment type, but the assignment module was completely rewritten for Moodle 2.3, and it introduced two new assignment types, the submission type and the feedback type. Submission has to do with how students submit their work, what they upload, and how they interact with Moodle in doing that. And the assignment feedback type is how the teacher then gives feedback to that assignment. The PDF submission and PDF feedback are the two most popular ones in the assignment type. And what they allow is for a student to upload a PDF file, and you can do that already without the plugin, but this works along with the PDF feedback assignment type, and with that, the teacher can go in and annotate the PDF within Moodle and then submit that annotated version back to the student. And so I think that that's being considered for inclusion in core. It uses GhostScript and offers some pretty neat functionality. The online audio recording is for students to be able to press a record button and then record some audio and submit that to the teacher. And then the teacher can listen and hear that and grade it normally. Similarly, the YouTube submission type allows students to upload a video and submit that to the teacher. So, some of these things you could do without the plugins, simply by uploading an MP3. But the idea is to include the functionality that the student needs within Moodle to accomplish these things. And there might be reasons why some of these things aren't in core. They may rely on something particular to the browser, something that we generally feel is not kind of universal enough for all users, but a particular site may say, well, for our users, we're not concerned about that, so this should work fine for us. Moving on to course formats. Course formats allow you to organize the way that the material in a course is presented to the student. And one of the concerns that has been addressed and looked at is what's called the scroll of death, the long page that you just have to scroll through all of this tons of information. And so things like the collapsed topic function basically like the topic course format, except that it collapses them and gives you a little button, and we'll look at that a little bit later, that you can expand each topic one at a time. And so it prevents the screen from being so long. And in the grid format, it does a similar type thing, except that instead of collapsing them with a little button, it gives you an image and allows you to kind of organize the course differently. So that's what course formats are about, and the two most popular ones there. I suspect themes are pretty obvious to folks. It changes the appearance of Moodle with colors and images and different CSS rules, and so really allows you to kind of give Moodle its your own kind of look and feel. And so the three most popular themes are Aardvark and Aardvark Post-it, and then Rocket. And so there are these numbers out to the side. This 67 means that there are currently 67 themes that are in Moodle Plugins that have been reviewed. Moving on to activity modules, there are currently 169 of those. Activity modules are ways for the student to interact and submit information to the teacher or collaborate together. And so there's Hotpot, which allows teachers to write Hotpot quizzes and incorporate those into their Moodle site, and then for the students to take those. Questionnaire, very similar to feedback, and there is work in Moodle Core to kind of combine feedback, the best of feedback and questionnaire and survey into a new survey activity module, but questionnaire has been very popular. It was initially similar to like MRBS. It was initially a separate project. I believe it was PHP ESP, just as a way of getting information back and taking a survey and asking your students questions and having them answer them, and then coordinate or pull the results together in a nice fashion to kind of show you how they were responding. And then the Big Blue Button activity module, which we've all had the privilege of experiencing here at iMoot, and just gives you that web conferencing functionality. I've been real thrilled to see a good open source product step in for web conferencing. I'm a big fan of Big Blue Button. Blocks are designed to give users, your Moodle users, information, and so they're off to the side. Things like the birthday block and online users block and things like that. The two most popular ones are the progress bar and configurable reports. The neat thing about configurable reports is that it allows you to make custom reports through that interface without having a lot of knowledge of SQL. So it's kind of designed for non-technical folk or just folks that want to use a more graphic way of building a report. And so it's a little bit more limited. You can't quite do as many complex things as you can with the ad hoc query plugin, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But it's certainly a good place to start. And so I think I was asked, if there was one plugin that I would install, it might be the configurable reports, just because it gives you that flexibility in your user flexibility to build reports. Let's see. Moving on to file repositories and portfolios. And so file repositories are ways, Moodle made a very conscious decision years ago, back in 2.0, to say it's not interested in writing its own document management system. It wants to be able to utilize, because there are lots of companies out there that are doing that and do that well. Instead, Moodle wants to be able to interact with all of them, or as many of them as possible, so that users can go out and find the files that they want and pull those in. And so when Moodle transitioned from 1.9 to 2.0, there was a feeling among some in the community that they had lost kind of the old way of course, having a bunch of files. And so the course file area was a repository that was written to kind of add that functionality back into Moodle 2.0. And so I always think it's great how people can, really customize Moodle to kind of do what they want it to do. Poodle is another file repository. Poodle is designed, and there's a session on it by Justin Hunt, and it's a set of plugins for Moodle which adds audio and video recordings, whiteboards, flashcards, and other interactive activities and widgets. So if you haven't seen that presentation, you're interested in Poodle, I've heard that it's really good. Microsoft Skydrive, so some of the repositories in core are things like Dropbox and Google Docs, and so Microsoft Skydrive also has a plugin that someone wrote for that. So the idea is to be able to go out to a file repository and pull the information into your Moodle site and then use it throughout Moodle. The portfolio is being able to take information that's in Moodle and push it out to another service. There's only currently one portfolio export, the blog export portfolio type, and that plugin basically uses Moodle's blog and pushes information into that. The most popular, and I'm pretty sure there's a presentation, is Mahara as a portfolio, and so you might want to check that out if you're interested in helping your students to build portfolios for others to look at of their work. Moving on to the Plagiarism API. Yeah, Megan, going back to this question about reports, it's really kind of almost unlimited, the types of reports that you can do with configurable reports, and then with the SQL-based one by Tim Hunt, the Ad Hoc, you could pretty much write any report. As long as the data is there, you can get it out. So I'd say the best thing is just to install it on a test server and poke around it and play with it and make sure that you can get what you're looking for. And if you can't, ask some questions. I know that with configurable reports, you can import some types of reports from others, and so there's ways of sharing that information. Moving on to the Plagiarism API, how to check and make sure that students aren't, kind of being and copying each other's work. There are a couple. There's one free one, the CROT Plagiarism Checker. There may be other free ones, but that's the most popular one. And then there are service-based plagiarism plugins, things like Turnitin.com and Erkin. And I like to point out, that Moodle's perfectly happy to work with, with anyone. And so Turnitin.com and Erkind, if your institution subscribes to that service of checking, there are plugins that you can use, and then when an assignment gets uploaded, it can be submitted to them, and you can the student can get reports back. And I really like that. There's been a push, I think, to help folks see. It's not the well, let's see if we can catch them cheating, so much as to help them to learn how to really attribute things properly. I think that there's a positive way of kind of looking at that. Moving on to the question types, there are three different plugin types related to questions. First is question types, and so how do you want to be able to present the question to the student, and then have the student respond to that question? And so, typically in core, the question types are things like true and false, multiple choice, fill in the blank type questions. And so some folks said, well, we want to be able to, drag, a word into text and, say, well, which, word kind of goes in this, part of the sentence type thing. And so you can use drag and drop into text there. Or this teacher may have a map, and they want the student to be able to identify the different countries. And so they can drag and drop the word onto an image. Or they may want the student to select the missing word. And so you can build up question types and write question types to handle those needs. Question formats have to do with how to interact with the questions database. So, how to quickly take questions in one format and pull them into, to import them or export them, into and out of Moodle. So that's what the question formats are. And so the two most popular there are Hotpot question import and Microsoft Word table format. I've not used the Microsoft Word table format, and that's in part because I liberated myself from Microsoft probably about 5 years ago. So have been running Ubuntu since then. Question behaviors is a concept that I don't quite understand myself, but it basically allows you to write rules for how to respond to the information being presented in a question. And so the two most popular ones there are question managed by a remote engine. And so the goal here is that you may have questions that are in another site under a particular different service, and that you'll be able to use those within Moodle. And then adaptive mode, and I'm not quite sure how to explain that. So I'd say, kind of look on the forums or the help. One of the things in plugins is, if you download a plugin, I encourage all maintainers, I strongly encourage, for them to provide the source code URL, so that if you're a developer type, that you can go in and actually look at the code and perhaps collaborate with them via Git or whatever service that they're using. I encourage them to provide a documentation URL, and I encourage them to provide a link to whatever tracker system they're using for bugs and feature requests, because I really do want the community to be able to interact with them and communicate with them about their experience. And we've recently added also a discussion link, so I'll be encouraging folks to make use of that as well, so that there's a place for forum discussions about kind of usage scenarios and issues that folks are experiencing or questions that they have, that they can discuss those on the forums. There's also under plugins comments, and if you're assessing and looking at a plugin and considering it for your site, you can read the comments. just a cautionary word there. Try to not make the comments a place for reporting bugs. You know, it's really meant to be a place to comment on, you know, your experience and whether the plugin really works well for you or not. And so it's meant just to be kind of an informal review of users. And so try to make good use of the comments. If you do have an issue, a bug, that's best reported using the link for the tracker issue, which can either be Moodle Tracker or a lot of folks are using GitHub. GitHub provides a service for issues so that folks can report those. And also there are reviews of plugins. We have some trusted users that write reviews and of a particular version of that plugin. And if you're interested in becoming a reviewer, you know, please send me an email to anthony@moodle.org, and I'm happy to look at that and discuss, you know, kind of what's involved with that with you. Moving on to the authentication types, we currently have 15, and the authentication types are, you know, how does the user log in, and what's the method of authenticating them that they are who they say they are. And so there's the OAuth 2 is the most popular one, which is kind of used by Google and Facebook type things. There is a SAML one. It's not as popular, but that's there. And then Joomla, which allows for single sign-on between Joomla and Moodle. And I've just been saying a cautionary word that at one point, this was several years ago, I remember that reading that there were some security issues with Joomla or Joomla folks that were trying to integrate the two. So I'm not sure what the current status of that is, but I just mentioned that as a word of caution. Enrollment types are how does a student enroll in a course, or how do we want to manage that? And both sign up and auto-enroll kind of create some rules that upon account creation that, you know, you can say, you know, I want all of the students enrolled automatically into an introductions course. And so there's some functionality there. Filters. I think filters are really neat. Filters really can be a great time saver and really helpful for teachers because, let's see, yeah, Joomla sometimes, you know, just from what I've read briefly, you know, occasionally has some issues. So just be careful and prudent there. Filters, I think, are really exciting because they can be great time savers or allow something that would be complicated to be much simpler. And so my favorite one in Moodle Core is the activity name auto-link filter. And what it does is if you have an activity name, say, you know, Spanish quiz number 1, and anytime I type Spanish quiz number 1, whether it's in a forum post or a label, it automatically will get converted into a link to that quiz, or that activity. And so, you know, I don't have to you know, create the link or add the link, and so a lot of times folks use this to kind of do some embedding, and so you know, there's the multimedia link, you know, that, you know, if there's a sound file there that it'll automatically bring up the player and things like that. And so there's some really neat stuff that you can do with filters. I encourage you to kind of check those out. Those can be real time savers, and teachers really like time savers. So there's the Poodle Filter, which allows you to link to the functionality in Poodle and quickly pull that into your site. There's the Whereas filter. Whereas are map-based tools And so, those are good. And then there's simple speak, text-to-speech, which just allows you to kind of tag information that you want converted from text into speech and have the user be able to listen to that text. So definitely check out filters. I think those can be really helpful for your users. Yes, AutoLink is a great little piece of functionality. Then we have general plugins, and general plugins, also known as local plugins, because that's the name of the folder that they go in is local. These are plugins that don't fit into the other plugin types, and so the idea is that they tend to be kind of more site-wide type things. There used to be, back in Moodle 1.9, before we had the local plugins folder, you would occasionally get folks that would submit things that were blocks, but the block wouldn't display. It would just provide some functionality in the background. And so, rather, that was kind of a hacky way of looking at it, and kind of an abuse of blocks. And so, to kind of keep things a little bit more pure, local plugins were created. And there's some really neat ones there. The first is Global Message. And Global Message is good for site admins that they can send out a message, alerting the users that are currently connected of something that's about to happen, like resetting the server. So please, save all your work and log out. So things like that, sending a global message to your users. And so that's, I think, a neat idea. Moodle Adminer is Adminer's a project similar to PHPMyAdmin that gives the user access to the database, or in this particular case, the Moodle database that underlying your Moodle installation. So, if you're someone that likes to kind of poke around the database and see what's happening, you can use Moodle Adminer. The advantages of it are it's a lot smaller than PHPMyAdmin, and it's also more DB friendly, that you can use it for Postgres and some other databases. And so that's a neat little project. The Code Checker plugin, if you're a developer, I would really encourage you to download and make use of this. Another great contribution by Tim Hunt. And it just basically goes through and makes sure that your code is following the coding guidelines for Moodle. And it'll report back to you and tell you what's not up to snuff, and so that you can fix it. I would like that to become part of the kind of the plugins review process automatically, that people are getting feedback about areas of code that need to be fixed or improved on. Message outputs. Moodle wants users to be able to control how they receive notifications. And so you can either receive notifications via email, via Moodle Message. There's a Jabber option. So if you had some instant messaging going on, you could connect to that and send it to them via that. And so there's an SMS message output currently in there, Moodle Text Plus, that would allow that notification to be texted to the person. So I've not actually used this, and it's the only one that's there under message outputs. But I do like the plugin type, the idea that to allow the user to control how they want to receive information. Here's an absolute list of the popular plugins that are in Moodle, or in Moodle plugins, and so I say an absolute list just because, as I go through and try to focus on some things like Aardvark and Aardvark Post-it are both themes, and so I try to give a wider variety and so I'd skip over that and show the questionnaire, the module. But here's a list of the most popular downloaded plugins, and all of this information is available. If you go to plugins under navigation, there's a link for statistics. If maybe someone wants to poke around and find that. I don't have a badge to award for it, but if you post that in the chat, that would be helpful for folks. Now I want to go and look at I had these slides reversed. There are reports, and the Hoc Database Queries was the report plugin that I was mentioning that requires a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more technical expertise, because the queries are actually SQL based. Thanks, Gareth, for providing that link for us. And feel free to kind of poke around the plugins area and let me know if you have questions, looking for things and finding information. So, but the Hoc Database Queries allows users to enter custom SQL commands and kind of build reports and indicate who can run that, and it's very helpful and powerful, what you can do. So, and there is a list, I believe, in the documentation of popular queries that folks have created and that you can use and add to your site. So there are general reports, there are admin reports, there are course reports, and grade reports. And so these are all available, engagement analytics, gold, silver, bronze, metals reports, and the upload PDF grade report. And so you can look at each of those and kind of see the information that they provide that might not have been in Moodle before. Administrative tools. Sometimes a site admin needs to do some, kind of cleanup or management type things. And so one of the plugins there is to edit roles by capability. And so it adds that ability for you to look at a particular capability. Capabilities are basically how Moodle handles who can do what. And so you can create a role that says that a teacher has the ability to edit a student grade, and so it just gives you an alternative way of managing some of those roles and capabilities. There's the advanced spam cleaner, and so I believe this is the one used on Moodle.org for allowing folks to kind of report spam and be able to go in and see that and kind of clean some of that up. Then there are more kind of, smaller plugin types, I guess, and this is not an exhaustive list. I know that there are plugin types within, say, the workshop module that you can create and use as well. They're just not that popular, or they didn't have any, and so I didn't include them in this report. User profile fields. It used to be Moodle just had one field type, and it was text, and you could go in and add text and create your own custom profile fields. But now they're actually field types, and this allows you to, I think, do a lot more with those user profile fields. And so the one that's in there is certificate wall, and it's not related to certificate module, so don't confuse it with that. It's not connected in any way with badges. What it is connected with is a website called Certificates Walls. I think it's walls.com, and if you have a profile there, it'll pull the certificates that you've earned from that site and display them in your Moodle site. Generally speaking, I try to encourage folks to avoid terminology that would be confusing or misleading to folks. And so, when there's already, certificates, but in this case, because it was the domain name, and kind of part of their service or perhaps even trademark, it's okay. But generally, I try to watch out for and help folks not get confused. So, read the fine print. Understand that if you're going to be using plugins, that you should proceed with due caution because they're not maintained by Moodle HQ. They've not undergone an extensive review of the code. The code review that I do is very superficial, very quick, just looking for glaring, obvious things that stand out to me. And so make sure that, that they're from trusted sources or that, that you, perhaps pay a Moodle partner to review the code before you, install that on a production site. There may be reliability, stability, performance issues in them, and so again, there's not been the same type of rigorous testing that happens with Moodle core code. Moodle core code is now peer-reviewed. Any changes that go in are being looked at by someone else. An integrator looks at it to give some assurance that it's not going to break other parts of Moodle. Testing is done and QA testing, and so there's a pretty rigorous process, and it's been really neat for me to watch as Moodle has matured over the years. And so just recognize that the idea of plugins is we want to encourage folks to share what they're doing, what they have with the community, but that's there's a bit of a risk involved in that. So certainly back up your database and data. Don't install first time a plugin or an add-on to your production site. You really ought to create a test server, and that's really easy to do under the packages at download.moodle.org. And so do that and test things out. And recognize that the folks that maintain add-ons, generally speaking, are volunteers. Something like turnitin.com, or if there's a commercial service behind it, you can work with them on getting them to support that. But other things that folks write, that they're just sharing it because they wrote it. And they want others to be able to take advantage of that. And so be patient with them, but don't be shy. Reach out, let them know that you're using the code, let them know what you like and don't like. Developers really like to hear how other people are using their code. Just recognize that a lot of times they're not necessarily being compensated. And there has been talk about how we might encourage, things like donation buttons and things like that, but the reality is, I think, oftentimes that's not used. But just be patient with developers. The other big issue with using an add-on is that, and again, in a process that we're working on improving, is if you want to upgrade your site and there have been changes to an API that may break that add-on or may require some changes to the add-on, then that developer, that maintainer needs to do that. But again, if you have those skills and you're willing to work with them, feel free to say, hey, here are some changes. And the release notes for each version of Moodle now are including any API changes. And those are much better documented. making it, I think, a lot easier to kind of look and see, is it likely that there were any changes that are going to impact a particular add-on? And if there are, you can kind of anticipate that and begin working on that and have those ready so that when the new version of Moodle is released, that you're good to go. Any questions about, I'd maybe share with each other some of the plugins or add-ons that you've used on your site and that you've found helpful for your users and what you like about them. So please do that in the chat. I'm going to move on now quickly to installing Moodle and really to kind of show how easy it is now to install an add-on, especially if you're hosting your own server. It'll allow you to browse Moodle.org plugins and quickly and easily install those. Prior to that, you had to have access to your server and download the files as, say, a zip file or a tar file, and copy those into the right location. And so sometimes folks would download a block and they'd install it into the activity module, and then they'd get a bunch of errors. And so having the functionality in 2.5 to just go out and grab and say, hey, this is what I want installed, and knowing that it's going to get installed into the right place is a great service. If you're a developer and you want to kind of work with someone on code and supporting them, sometimes one of the things I try to do is people will submit similar projects, and I'll encourage them to, rather than having two very similar plugins, I'll try to encourage them to actually work together and have one. And part of this, I think, is kind of some lessons learned from having like questionnaire and feedback. Very similar in functionality, what they do, and so how can we bring those together so as not to cause confusion in the community. But if you're a developer type, then I would say consider installing using Git, and there's a nice Git for administrators page in the documentation that will help you to do that. So you go in and you click on, I'll go back and show that where that button is. And so this is the install add-ons from the Moodle Plugins directory. And so if you click on that in your site, it will take you to Moodle Plugins directory where you can search either by name, or you can browse around the different plugin types and kind of look for what you're looking for. I think if you're going to add a plugin to Moodle, the first thing is it should meet some need. So there should be a functional need for it, so that if you're spending the time and the effort to do it, you want there to be a real reason for that. Or you can just go through the download stats and kind of see what's popular and just say, hey, I want to see what this does on my site. Once you find something that you're interested in, say the Configurable Reports block, you click Install. That button will be there if it's available for your version of Moodle. If not, then you have to revert back to the download and manually copying it onto the site. But be careful with that because that means that particular version has not been tested. That particular version of the plugin has not been tested with that version of Moodle, and so proceed with caution there. But usually there will be a version for your version of Moodle, and so you click on Install. And then it will ask you to confirm. There's a request to install that plugin or that add-on, and simply say Continue. At that point, your site will go out and grab the zip file of that plugin, and it will do some analysis of it and make sure that it is in fact a valid plugin, and it'll tell you if it is. And if validation passes, then you can proceed without too much worry. If there are warnings or errors, look at those carefully and make sure that there's not a problem. Then if Moodle will kick off the upgrade routine to upgrade the database, and say you tell it to go ahead and continue there. And then it will let you know that it was installed properly or successfully, and so you continue, feeling very elated that you've installed it. And then if there are any options, configuration settings that need to be set, it'll give you the opportunity to set the defaults there. And so these were the URL and the salt for big blue button. And so you can still use the method of uploading a zip file, and like I said, if there's not a version for say you have a 2.5 site and but the plugin hasn't been tested on 2.5, but you want to do that, you can still upload the zip file. You have to set the plugin type so that it knows what type it is to expect and that it's looking for, and then check that you understand that you're careful about doing things, that you have a backup. So anyway, I think it's really slick, this new functionality in Moodle 2.5, and I hopefully that'll allow folks to install and use plugins with much greater ease. So you've tested a plugin and now you want to delete it. You can go in to plugins, and there's a plugins overview, and that'll give you a list, and it'll give you an option to uninstall that. Just keep in mind that some of the plugins, like blocks, won't necessarily remove the file, and this is something I think we need to improve on so that it's consistent. And so I'm going to do an issue in the tracker for that, but to remove the directory so that when you go to the notifications page, it doesn't get reinstalled. So currently, if you just kind of uninstall the block through the UI and don't go and actually remove the files from the server in that path, then as soon as you go back to notifications, it will reinstall it again. So if you really want to make sure that those files get removed from the server, you have to do that for some. But yet for other things like theme, it will let you know that it's going to be removed. And so it says, do you want to remove the plugin folder now? And so it'll do that for you. So I want that to happen for all plugins that code actually gets deleted. Real quickly, we just have a few minutes left here, and again, if you have questions, feel free to ask those. The Aardvark theme, when I assess a theme for my site, I really want to look at the description carefully and make sure that what it says it's going to do is something that I actually need. So that's, I think, that functional requirement piece. I like to see if there's documentation. Granted, for a theme, there's not too much need for documentation, although some themes do have some options that can need some explanation. So, all right, have a good evening, Michael. Glad you were able to be with us. The number of downloads, so it gives you a sense of how popular it is. Whether it's been officially reviewed by one of our trusted reviewers, and this theme has not. What versions of Moodle it's available for, and then I like to look at who's maintaining it and how long have they been with the Moodle community. If you look at their user profile, you can see when they first accessed Moodle.org, and so this was another one of my suggestions. I wanted to see how long people had been around, and so that was that's a very helpful piece of information. And one of the things that stood out to me was many of the most popular plugins or add-ons have been contributed by folks who've been around the community for about 5 years or so. And so that experience, I think, is really something worth looking at. The Hotpot activity module, as I mentioned, allows teachers and administrators to give hot potatoes and tech toy quizzes via Moodle. And so they're created and kind of brought into Moodle. There is some good documentation here. 35,000 downloads, no review. Not yet available for 2.5, but Gordon is the maintainer of that, and he's been around for a very long time. The collapsed topics course format, as I had mentioned earlier, it does collapse each topic, and then you just kind of click on the arrow, and it'll expand the topic for you. So that's there. Big Blue Button integrates Moodle with Big Blue Button. There's been 14,000 downloads. It has an official review. It has documentation. It's available for 2.5. Fred's been around for a while, and it's been great to work with. All of the folks at Big Blue Button really receptive to feedback and model contributors to Moodle. So, screenshot. So, look, at the when you look at a particular add-on, I look for those links. Is there a screenshot that allows me to easily and quickly assess things, and has someone else reviewed it? And look in the comments. Are folks saying good things about it? Big Blue Button brings up the concept of sets because they have two activities, two plugins that are both related to the same functionality. One provides the recordings, and the other provides the ability to kind of connect to the service. And so these obviously work best when both are installed. And in that scenario, we call them a set. And so there are sets of plugins that they just work better when installed together, even if they're not necessarily required. If they're required, then there is the concept of dependencies, and I ask the developers to note that and to have that in the version PHP so that it won't allow you to install something that requires another activity. So say, for example, there was a report that interacts with the certificate activity module, and it wouldn't make any sense to have that report if you didn't have the certificate activity module installed. And so you can create that dependency that says, don't install this report plugin if the certificates activity is not already installed on the server. So the OU set, look at the version PHP. That will list any dependencies. So if there's a particular plugin that you're interested in, sometimes we use this set to say that all of the plugins from OU, and it's really there's this other concept that was introduced called flavors, which is basically a way of allowing you to kind of quickly set up your site with certain configuration, the OU set, though, they're not all dependent on each other. It just recognizes that they work best, and that OU has kind of used them together. But look at the version.php and see exactly what the dependencies are. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Another suggestion was, for a particular plugin to show the languages that are available. But I think showing dependencies and making that clear, immediately would be a good thing. I'll make note of that. Show dependencies on plugins. That's a good suggestion. The configurable report I talked about, if you're interested in looking at that maybe a little bit closer, gives you some tabs that you can go through and build it up. So this is showing you a report. It was contributed by Juan Leyva from Spain, who's been around for a while, has a good review, is available for 2.5. And so, yeah, it's a neat tool as well. So I really do want to open up for questions and comments. So if you have those brewing, feel free to ask those. The grid format, as I mentioned, similar. Each topic kind of becomes a graphic image that you can kind of click on, and creates this grid. And that, again, avoids that long scroll of death that folks were so averse to. There's no documentation on that, and that brings me to this, my other point here, is for you to really participate. I really want to see plugins become very dynamic with people, testing them and playing with them and critiquing them and improving them. And so, using Moodle Tracker or whatever issues tracking system that the maintainer has suggested, give them feedback. Let them know what's good, what's bad. Help them with documentation. The more that users are helping people with documentation, the more that the developer can spend time developing. Discuss it in your experiences on the Moodle forums. Get involved with translations. And so I had another presentation that was very Star Trek themed, Borg focused, and so I said inexperience is irrelevant. We should allow our own experiences to kind of help with the Moodle collective. And so do share your experiences with each other. I saw back earlier in the chats folks talking about feedback, which became part of Moodle Core. And so sometimes that happens where a plugin or add-on is so popular or brilliantly written that it gets incorporated. The book activity module is another one that was very popular that Moodle HQ said that they would take up and maintain that. Certificates was very popular as well. Questionnaire from Remote Learner, very popular, and they do a great job of maintaining that. Yeah. And then occasionally there are things like, I know Journal was listed there in that list of popular downloads. Journal was initially in Core and then kind of phased out with the hopes that folks would use the assignment activity module instead. But there was a remnant group that said, no, we really like Journal as it is, and we want to maintain that for others. And so that's still around if you want to use that. Yeah, I believe the feedback activity module is disabled by default, but it's a really good way of. I used it to get feedback from my students, like end-of-year review type things, course evaluation, and so I found it really helpful for that. Thanks, Gareth. Good having you around. Yeah, documentation translation using AMIS. AMIS is the translation system, so the language file is with plugins is automatically added to that so that anyone can kind of come in and begin help with translating plugin strings. So it's a great service. So at this point, any questions, comments? That's all I have. Sorry I went so long. There's a lot of information, but certainly wanted to share most that I could about the most popular plugins. So at this point, any comments, questions, suggestions for how plugins can be improved and made more useful for you? Certainly open to hearing that.
Hi, Anthony. This is Vinny from Pukunui and the iMoot team.
Uh-huh.
I was just going to jump in and say thank you very much for your presentation.